Suppose it was possible that there was a civilization in the Egyptian region. And this civilization existed even before recorded history and disappeared for certain reasons that affected a big portion of the world. During the flourishing of this or that civilization, people possessing such a level of skill existed, which the modern world cannot achieve today. They built structures with such accuracy that modern industrial lasers have not managed to surpass. In addition, it is likely that they already employed electricity, which is familiar to us nowadays, to light their streets and homes. But what is peculiar and creepy about it is that the said ancient civilization for one day simply vanished, and all their wisdom and advancement was never handed down to the next generations, as if they never existed on the face of the earth without any reasonable cause. Well, take your sweet cup of mint, and come with me as I reveal a forbidden story in contemporary archaeology. The direct and thrilling account of the hidden secrets of Egypt's lost civilization, which has been buried for thousands of years. Let's begin. How did the mainstream academic community, yielding to the lure of unexplained phenomenon, lose its way? The author's first part of the article series outlines clearly the discoveries in science and archaeology which apparently indicate that Egyptian civilization did not start 7,000 years ago, and the civilization has been continuous history since 12,500 years. With such issues, you mentioned long-gone epochs in Egypt's evolution that featured many of the most outstanding engineering and technological achievements. Some of these achievements included the 3 pyramids of Giza, particularly the Great Pyramid of Khufu, which we hypothesized may have been possibly used as power generators for the generation of electricity out of air, as postulated in this new discovery knowledge, rather than acting as tombs for the old Egyptian kings as traditional archaeology puts it. We also considered where they were 10,500 years ago as the age of the Sphinx, during the period that increased rainfall on Earth. In the second subdivision of this introduction, we expanded on Egyptian identity as well as ancient Egyptian historical background, which is well documented to be the oldest civilization that can boast itself with the longest uninterrupted historical legacy in the entire world. We also explored the continuous attack on the history of Egypt and the large plan to steal, erase, and rewrite the history of ancient Egypt and credit it to black Africans. However, there are numerous other amazing discoveries that we have not touched upon in this analysis, and all of them indicate that this territory was populated by a highly technological civilization that built engineering and technological marvels that are still unparalleled in the present day. On Thutmose III obelisk, there is an intriguing inscription. The meaning, purpose, and significance of its top was of gold and shone beautifully over Wasset. For a long period, it remained concealed. But the findings of recent science and science research activities suggest that it could be far stranger than you ever thought. The reality is that items such as the ancient Egyptian obelisks like that of Thutmose III are arguably some of the most complex technological engineering even by today's measures. Unfortunately, the way they have constructed these edifices is still unknown, and the level of accuracy they have attained is really puzzling. Why, you ask? Because these obelisks have undergone construction processes that were so difficult that even with the present modern technology, it was not an easy task, not to mention the technology that was available thousands of years ago. Such is the smoothness of these cutting, transportation and erection, that the so-called archaeologists and Egyptologists have stood with their mouths open as to how the ancients could accomplish it all with Stone Age tools. The only way of realizing such accuracy would be to use lasers. Furthermore, the majority of these obelisks, if not all, are sculptured from red granite, and this entails that it is made up of quartz. You should also know that there's such a thing as hardness, especially regarding the materials and the role they play. The red granite, which has components of quartz, belongs to the hardest known stone. I think that we understand each other quite well so far. Great. Now, picture that, according to history recorded in archaeological evidence, the general perception of history and world and various scientific researches is that these constructors of the obelisks used only such tools as cutting tools of copper and bronze. These metals are not as strong and hard as quartz and red granite as one may consider. So, the question arises, in what way? People have raised such questions. How were these people able to cut stones of such strength with tools that they had made from these metals, which scientifically are inadequate or inapt for the purpose of cutting them? Then how did they manage to cut these stones to precise dimensions and angles? One material that could provide that kind of strength and hardness to allow for such cutting through red granite has been compressed into what is referred to as diamond. However, not a single diamond tool has ever been discovered at the obelisk sites, or any other sites for that matter. Also, these obelisks are made of red granite that contains quartz, and that implies that they can produce electricity when applicable pressure is applied to them, as I envisaged was the case with the Great Pyramid in the first section. This leads us back to the inscription on Ramses III's obelisk. Its top was of gold, it had glitter. Perhaps these obelisks were used more in the manner of the lights that are installed on the roads of today's world during that era of the ancient Egyptian civilization? Picture men and women strolling around wearing clothes from the dawn of civilization and the tops of the obelisks lighting up with electricity from where we can even imagine. Still more fascinating is one of the most enigmatical questions of modern Egyptology, the Serapeum sarcophagi. In the southwest district of the Egyptian desert, there is located an archaeological site formerly called the Serapeum of Saqqara. Aaron's burial site was unearthed by Egyptologist Auguste Mariette in 1848 and traces its history from the reign of King Amenhotep III, who belonged to the 18th dynasty of New Kingdom, 13th century BC. But that's not the most shocking aspect of it. However, it is fairly shocking that there are about 26 serpent monumental funerary containers in the Serapeum that were made from hard brilliant stones including red granite, black granite, basalt, schist and quartz. This must be understood of each one of these sarcophagi, which rightfully weigh approximately 100 tons of weight. To put that into perspective, to move probably one would need around 500 strong men. But then, how were all these sarcophagi moved into the tiny and intricate corridors of this temple? Also, what is more, these sarcophagi were not made from stone blocks, but they had been sculptured from stones. This means that the first means of construction was to make a block of stone and then remove the unnecessary parts. From the scientific point of view, it is unthinkable to carve or slash these rocks with the existing tools at that age, not to mention the accuracy and angles that can hardly be accomplished even with today's laser technologies. And there's more. The length of the corridors is about 400 meters and they were excavated underground in the solid rock of the Saqqara Plateau, not that sand. They are in the form of tunnels which are located underground, and one has to use stairs which are stepped in order to access the tunnel. If you take a look at the map of the tunnel, you can note that the main tunnel splits into numerous branches and all of them have special niches for the sarcophagi. How were these giant sarcophagi transported to the tunnels, and how were they transported all those distances? As I said, moving one requires 500 people. Well, where were all those people placed, that had been so familiar with the technological marvels of the USA? Besides, the main course runs in a straight line and it is carved in a perfect manner. Well, how did they manage to make it this accurate over 400 meters inside the mountain with no form of light at all? In what way can sunlight penetrate a tunnel which is located 400 meters deep in a mountain? They could not have seen where they were cutting, and how did they manage to carve such a long distance, and where did they dispose of all the chippings? In case lit torches were employed, there are no signs of them at the sides of the tunnel. Furthermore, the use of torches at that depth would have been very inconvenient since they generate heat, smoke, and there is a lack of oxygen at such depths. With today's power tools, it is not easy to carve such a tunnel, and therefore, it raises the question of how this was done by hand 3,000 years ago. And here's something that might truly unsettle you. This is when in one of the corridors there is a niche that theoretically should house a sarcophagus, but which is actually empty, while the sarcophagus is put as if it were a part of the main corridor display. It has the appearance that the builder was in some way interrupted and just disappeared and left the building. This could be true that these people could have been a part of the large civilization in Egypt thousands of years before the recorded history of early Egyptian civilization. However, they never did this due to the fact that before they could write down their knowledge for the use of the future generations, a major disaster struck and they and all the other sciences were destroyed from the face of the earth.